I'm joined now by the former spokesperson for Breitbart News, Kurt Bardella. Kurt, how instrumental are the Mercers as a sort of force behind Breitbart?
Well, I think that they're the lifeblood of it, really, because at the end of the day, what matters in politics are outcomes of elections. And the way you get there is with resources and money. The reason why people are taking Steve Bannon's attack and assault against the Republican establishment so seriously is because they know it's not just Steve Bannon. It's Steve Bannon with a benefactor that has very deep and unlimited pockets and resources to put into these type of elections and races and make them, at the very least, competitive, if not to outright have enough money to win them. So it's one thing when you just have a lunatic like Steve Bannon and Breitbart at the fringes putting up ridiculous headlines. It's another when they have enough money to build an entire political action network that can be incredibly effective in the political process.
Well, and there's also the fact, I mean, going back through the sort of reporting today, I guess I didn't quite grasp, or I did, but had sort of forgotten how crucial they were financially to Breitbart, going from essentially a collection of blogs to being a media company. I mean, they were the sort of, they staked it, the money and capital it needed to become the platform that it would become.
Right. And remember, in the wake, in the immediate aftermath of Andrew Breitbart's passing, there was a lot of questions. What would happen to Breitbart? Would it survive? Is it really a viable platform without their namesake behind it and active? And all of a sudden, here come the Mercers with their deep pockets, really giving Breitbart that second lease on life, and in fact, giving them the resources that made them even more impactful, having even more of an audience, being able to use social media to grow their following. They are so much more impactful because of this money. And we're seeing now them deploy that. They're not just a media company really functionally now, they're a political action network.
Well, I think that's the key point here. I mean, this is the Mercers have made a variety of investments. They have a variety of properties they've invested in that are all sort of working in concert. I mean, you've got reporting that Rebecca Mercer would call up someone at Breitbart and say she wants them to do a story on a conservative whose app has been kicked out of the iTunes store, and lo and behold, there it is. And Bannon writes an email being like, this is a victory. So they have these sort of avenues for their political intervention, whether it's a super PAC, it's Bannon, it's Breitbart, it's money to candidates, or it's Cambridge Analytica. It's a pretty diverse portfolio.
Right, and it creates basically this self-sustaining echo chamber where they can go from crazy on the fringe conspiracy theory to putting it on the pages of Breitbart to reaching the President of the United States. I mean, one of the most terrifying anecdotes so far in the new Kelly regime at the White House is Trump had asked, "Where's my Breitbart news?" Think about that. The commander-in-chief wants to get his information from platforms that are basically self-sustaining propaganda machines. That's terrifying.
Let me ask you this. I've followed your career for a while and watched you go through various iterations. The way you're talking about Breitbart right now is hard to square with you working there. I mean, how did you come to... You're talking about this place as sort of this, like, contemptible hornet's nest of conspiracy theories and you know, deleterious actions to the country. Like, when did you realize that?
So I'm sure a lot of your audience right now is wondering, well, how could Chris have this guy on who worked at Breitbart? And the truth is this. When I first came across Breitbart, it was right after Andrew had died, and Steve had talked about wanting to build a platform that told and chronicled the story that was going on the center right. And there was a lot going on there, and I felt, yeah, that story should be told. That's interesting. What I didn't sign up for and didn't realize I was getting into was someone that was as, frankly, crazy as Steve is, but who also had this political agenda and wanted to build this ecosystem to prop up someone like Donald Trump. And when I saw that happening, that's when I decided, you know what, I need to get out of this. This isn't right for me. I don't want to be a part of this. I don't feel good about this. And so I made the decision to resign and become, you know, speak out and try to tell as much of the truth as I can about who these people really are.
Do you view Bannon and Breitbart and the sort of Trump world as essentially a kind of, you know, united front that are backed by the Mercers?
Yes, and I think the key thing is Bannon has said this, his goal is to destroy the establishment, to destroy the pillars of the establishment that keep this republic going. And the fact that it goes from Bannon to people that are as funded as, you know, with Mercers and the resources, all the way to the White House, that is an incredibly dangerous alliance that can do a lot of damage to this country. All right, Kurt Bardella, thanks for being with me tonight. Thanks for having me on, Chris.
Coming up next, a very quotable Thing 1, Thing 2. You don't want to miss it.
News doesn't